Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Michaud. I'm the Director of Public Health for the town of Dartmouth. We decided to offer a show on mosquitoes with the onset of the warm weather, and we figured we would have our local professional expert, Priscilla Matten, from the superintendent from the Bristol County Mosquito Control, join us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can you give us a little introduction about yourself and the agency?
Sure. So Bristol County Mosquito Control is located now in Attleboro. We just moved from Taunton, and we service all 20 towns within Bristol County, Massachusetts. And what we do is we provide different services for mosquito control purposes. I was previously the entomologist for 11 years before becoming the superintendent, so I have some background not only on how the project runs, but also on some of the insects and mosquitoes that we're concerned about.
Okay, thank you. And the reason why the Bristol County Mosquito Control is forming is because mosquitoes are a public health threat and not just a pest like other insects can be.
Absolutely. So the Bristol County Mosquito Control Project was actually formed in the late 1950s because of the Eastern equine encephalitis outbreak that took place in Taunton. And that's because of the prime habitat that we have that is good for the mosquito that's responsible for triple E in areas like the Hockomock Swamp Complex, the Acushnet Cedar Swamp Complex, as well as the Bolton Cedar Swamp. Lots of locations here as well as in Plymouth County, Massachusetts, that have a lot of habitat for triple E. So we were formed quite a long time ago, mostly for disease, but then as the years have changed and the introduction of West Nile virus, we do not only vector control, but also some nuisance control as well.
So yeah, you have quite the geographic area that you're covering, going all the way up to Mansfield.
Exactly. We go from North Attleboro to Mansfield, all the way down to Fairhaven and over to Westport. So
Seekonk.
Yes, Seekonk, yes,
Yep.
Absolutely. So
that's a very, we think of Dartmouth as a large town, but you're dealing with the county, so.
Absolutely. It's about 600 square miles, so it is quite a large area. And habitat varies quite differently, even within our small county. So things that occur up towards the Hockomock area may not occur down on the salt marshes that we find here in Dartmouth. So there's definitely a difference in habitat, diseases, and the vectors that are associated with them.
And one thing that we hear about, we know about state government, town government, and county government seems to be non-existent, but this is a county service.
Right. So what we are is we are funded through the local town's cherry sheet. So the aid that comes into the towns can choose to join a mosquito control project. It's not required. All 20 towns within Bristol County, Mass are part of our services and member communities. So we're lucky that we have an area where we can help to control mosquitoes, because as we know, mosquitoes don't follow county or boundary lines for states or towns. So it's important to have large area coverage where we're surveilling and looking for things, not on small town by town basis, but certainly on a larger scale area.
Can you let me know about some of those services? I'm familiar with them, but the residents may not be.
Right. So we always get the question of, so what do you do all winter,
Mm-hmm.
right? So one of the services that we provide to all of our municipalities is water management. So all year round, we have a water management crew that will be cleaning out ditches, and that helps to create moving water. Since mosquitoes only breed in standing water, by moving the water along, we are able to prevent mosquito habitat. So we do water management all year round, and that's anywhere from upland areas to salt marsh areas, cleaning areas off of culverts to make sure that water is moving in those areas as well. So that's a year-round endeavor that we do, as well as cleaning brush, because sometimes the brush will grow up and fall down into the ditches and stuff, and that needs to be cleaned up as well. So that's one of the services that we offer all year round. Starting in the spring, so just recently, as of April, we started larviciding. So that's when we go out and we check standing water for mosquito larvae, and we treat the water if there's mosquito larvae in there. And then we'll continue that service into the summer. But usually once the summer comes around, we switch into adulticiding, which of course is one of the main features that we offer to our residents.
Yeah, and not far from where we're filming here is probably where some residents may be familiar with your winter activities with the water management is over near the Paden Bridge. We have a pond that plugs up from time to time. It is tidal, but then storm surges will cause it to plug up, and at least once a year you're out there with the excavator.
Absolutely, and that's really important too, because once it plugs up that pond, you'll get a lot of salt marsh mosquitoes. It's that flushing of the water that provides mosquitoes to get flushed out, or access for fish. So fish eat a lot of mosquitoes. So if you can put fish in any standing water, you will help reduce your mosquito population significantly. So by cleaning out the ditch, we're able to allow the fish to get access to those back areas of the marsh, eat the mosquito larvae, and that will prevent them from coming off. We also did and continue to monitor a ditch right close to the high school and the middle school over here. And that's because, you know, obviously anything that we can do around schools when we can't do a lot of pest management through chemicals, we try to do by reducing the amount of mosquitoes that can be breeding and then bothering the people when they're either at their football games, soccer games, baseball games, and all that.
So yeah, so the water management is one of your more obvious, open, and notorious activities. But you know, oftentimes we know that you do the adulticiding, and those activities, do they occur during the day, or should residents not expect to see you?
Sure, absolutely. So adulticiding takes place between 2 a.m. and sunrise. And the reason is because we're trying to reduce the non-target effects. So most bees are not active before sunrise. Most of the other insects are not active. So therefore we go out prior to that. Plus mosquitoes, the 51 species of mosquitoes that we have here in Massachusetts and in Bristol County are more what we term dusk and dawn feeders. So they're more active right around sunrise and sunset. So we want to be out there when the mosquito is out there. So being out there in the day is not going to do a whole lot for killing the mosquitoes. But certainly adulticiding is one of the things that we offer. We do it not only by residential request, but also by trap counts, traps that are sent within the towns or in neighboring towns that may affect, Dartmouth. We will make applications for that, as well as for any vector control. So if Tripoli or West Nile virus is detected in the area, of course that's important, and we'll go in and try to knock down that risk as well.
And we know that, sunrise typically after, once you start that phase of your operation, sunrise is pretty early, so most people are still in bed.
Absolutely. A lot of times we'll get calls, we didn't even hear you, or,
yes,
did you come, or something. And yes, it's because most people are not up. And that's also good for us too, because, it reduces the risk for people. Not a lot of people are outside, so therefore you're, at a less risk when you're in the house. There's no requirement on the label for the pesticide, which the pesticide label is the law, and we're required to follow the requirements on that label. Nothing says that you cannot use your property after an application. Nothing says you must close your windows or turn your AC off. All of those are just, things that people prefer to do to help avoid exposure. But certainly by reducing the amount of people that are outdoors when we make the application, makes our application much, much easier.
And there's a certain time of the year, and I know that has passed for this calendar year already, where residents can request exclusions.
Absolutely. So the Mass State law has an exclusions, and it's supposed to be done by March 1st of each year. And the exclusions get put through the town clerk's office right in Dartmouth. And but because I know that sometimes people forget and seasons change, and let's not say that everybody is thinking about mosquitoes in February, right?
Yes.
And we're working on some new legislation, regulation change, I should say, that might change the date to make it more when people are thinking about mosquitoes. But if anybody does feel that they would like to be excluded, they certainly can make a request through their town clerk's office, and just make sure that Bristol County knows as well, just so that it's on record in both places. But usually the deadline is March 1st. People need to include their address, their name. You don't need to have a reason. There's no reason required.
Yes.
If you want to provide us with a reason, we'd be more than happy to, maybe help explain some of the reasons why, if you have a beehive, it's not an issue. Again, the bees are not active. We make applications from the road. So the spray goes back about 300 feet from the road. It only kills the mosquitoes it comes in contact with, so the mosquito has to be flying when the product is applied. If the mosquito is resting or hiding, then more than likely the pesticide is not going to make contact with the mosquito, and therefore it's not going to have an effect. For the mosquitoes that are flying, then it can knock them down quite quickly and then kill them. And because of that, there's no residual, there's no long-term lasting effects from the pesticide. So it's not a barrier treatment, something that's going to last in the environment for weeks or months following. It lasts about 15 to 20 minutes after the application is made. Once it comes in contact with the soil or plants, it's not effective in killing the mosquitoes anymore. It breaks down very quickly in water and in sunlight, and so it leaves no residue behind. So because of all these reasons, it has very low toxicity, not only to non-targets, but also to, us, and our animals and our dogs and our cats and whatever else is outside.
This method of application, it's fairly benign. It's not a plane flying overhead or a helicopter. It's applied from the ground.
Correct, right. I believe that we have a picture of one of our spray trucks that show you it's just a normal everyday pickup truck with a spray machine in the back. What I like to tell people, because it's always interesting, we're actually putting out about a shot glass of product per acre. So it's really, really ultra low volume. It comes out in very small droplets, which is of course important to hit a very small mosquito. But it's very small amount of product that is going out. It's not like some of the old days where we would be putting out gallons, or some even agricultural crops require much larger application rates for some of their pests. Mosquitoes are different, so that's why there's much lower in terms of risk. Much lower reason why you're not going to see it usually when it comes out of the back of the truck. So even if you hear it and you see the truck drive by very slowly, you might say, well, it's not even on, because it doesn't bring out this, huge cloud, or, this very odd sense that, you're being, sprayed with lots of chemical. It's a very small amount of product that goes out.
Is there any recommendations that you would have as far as if someone had a fish pond or a vegetable garden near the road and spraying was occurring and they didn't exclude their property?
Sure. So, keep in mind the 300 feet. So depending on where your house sits within the 300 feet, with all vegetables, we recommend, just like with anybody else, to wash your vegetables, whether or not you grow them yourself or you get them in a garden, get them from your garden. So we recommend that. If you have any dog food or cat food or water dishes for your pets, just, clean them out. Horses, or any larger animals, you'd want to clean out the water if an application was made. But other than that, there's nothing really that they have to do. If they're concerned, then they certainly can take more precautions. We have a number that goes to an answering service, and you can call that answering service in the evening, and they'll tell you, 1, if your town is on the list, and then 2, if your street is on the list. They won't say specific addresses, but you'll get an idea. Yep. So if you wanted to know if today was your day, you could always call the answering service in the evening, and they would tell you. And then you can make those kind of adjustments if you felt like it.
And I know many years ago we used to get a lot of calls from residents because we used to actually compile a list weekly and send it over. And the residents used to call for spraying. So you will actually spray people's yards? Yes,
so we spray always by the truck, and it's usually from roadside. Again, because of that 300-foot drift back from the truck, we don't really need to access people's property. And the way that the product moves through the environment, it moves very well and comes in contact with those flying mosquitoes. But absolutely, residents can call us directly, and I have provided our information so that people can call our office or make spray requests. So you can call, which of course is always very busy, so please have patience, especially within the first month of the season starting. You can fax, which is a wonderful way to do it, or you can actually email us, and we provided our email. We just ask that you include your name, your address, and include your zip code, because a lot of stuff is done by zip code, especially in a town like Dartmouth, which is so large that sometimes we switch off between North and South Dartmouth. Yeah.
Yes.
So all of that is really important. We will start to take spray requests starting May 23rd, which is right around the corner. But we don't plan to begin spraying till after Memorial Day. Temperatures in the morning have to be above 58 degrees. So in the morning is between 2 a.m. and sunrise. It takes a little bit of time actually for us to get there. So it may not just be the day after Memorial Day that we can start. Weather plays a big factor, rain, wind, and of course temperatures. So even though it might get to 70, it doesn't mean it's 70 when we need to make the applications.
Yeah, and it's, from everything I'm hearing, it sounds as though these are a lot of controls that you've put in place because to minimize the application of a pesticide when it would be pretty much useless.
Exactly. We want to make sure that if we're making the application, then it's as effective as possible. And really windy days and rainy mornings, are just not, and low temperatures. And it doesn't have anything to do with the effectiveness of the product. The product can work. Mosquitoes are just not flying usually, right, below 55 degrees. Yes. So for the product to work, it has to come in contact with the mosquitoes. So that's why we try to limit our applications to that time.
Now, if someone has a large standing body of water that's not a pond, and they thought that might be a habitat for mosquito breeding, is that a service also that they can call and request for?
Absolutely. We're taking those requests now for standing water. We would ask you, of course, to call back if you wanted an adulticide request, but if you have any standing water in your property that you would like us to check, we would check it first, dip for larvae, and then if we found larvae, we would make a larvicide application.
And the larvicide that you use? We
use mostly BTI, which is a bacteria. We also use Bacillus sphaericus, which is another bacteria. One of our products that we use is actually a combination of both. BTI is shorter lived in the environment. Yes. It's usually pretty quick, where Bacillus sphaericus can give us a slightly longer control period of up to 30 days. It actually regenerates in the cadavers of the dead mosquitoes. So when the new mosquitoes eat the dead mosquitoes or the detritus in the water, then they can come in contact with the bacteria again.
Yeah, so these are great products. These aren't compounds that are affecting the metabolism or some other life function of the animal, of the insect, excuse me. It's actually a parasite or
it's a bacteria.
It's a bacteria,
yes,
that is parasitic to the mosquito larvae.
Correct. Yes, it's very specific. There are other there are mosquitoes and black flies that are affected, but black flies live in flowing water, so we have no control over black flies, which I'm sure we also, and you get calls about black flies once they start because they can be quite a nuisance as well. But they breed in moving water, but BTI is also effective against those.
Great for us,
well.
Bad for the mosquitoes.
Exactly, yes.
Mosquitoes, we know that, they're a pest. They bite, they make noise in our ears, they swarm around us, they leave a bite. It's itchy for long after for some people, after the mosquito has gone away. But there's another reason why. This is public health. We know that there are a number of diseases that mosquitoes can transmit. And do you want to talk about some of those diseases?
Sure. So in Massachusetts, the two most common diseases are Eastern equine encephalitis and West Nile virus. Eastern equine encephalitis has been here in Massachusetts since the early 30s with outbreaks. We have seen more activity since about 2004 than we had in previous years. So the last outbreak prior to 2004 was actually in 1990. Since 2004, things have been very active, and we're not exactly sure why. It could be certainly movement of the birds. It could be changing of habitat. It could be people moving closer to habitats where, the mosquitoes and people would not necessarily come into as much contact. It could be a change in the virus. It could be a multitude of different things. Last year, we had a very quiet Tripoli year. We were pretty shocked. But the overall population of the mosquito that's most common for starting the cycle within the bird population is Culiceta melanura. It's our cedar swamp mosquitoes, so areas where you get cedars and red maples, those types of areas. And what we found, both us as well as Plymouth County, is that we are starting to see a decrease in that mosquito. And while we don't have definitive reasons why, we believe that perhaps this continuation of the drought may have something to do with that. These mosquitoes overwinter or diapause or hibernate over the winter in the larvae form, in the water, in these swamps. So as the water was getting lower and lower, provides less habitat for those mosquitoes to overwinter. So therefore, they may have reduced their populations over time. We don't know. We're going to have to continue to monitor and see, as the water levels change, whether or not that's actually the reason why, or it's just one of those changes in biology that no one's going to have a good answer for.
Yeah. And one thing that you touched on earlier in the EEE discussion was mosquito species. We know that a mosquito is a mosquito if you're the general public,
Right.
but scientists categorize it much differently.
Absolutely. We have 51 different species of mosquitoes in Massachusetts, which, like you said, they really only know a dead mosquito. So it's different. They feed on a wide variety of different things. We have mosquitoes that only feed on amphibians. We have mosquitoes that only feed on birds. We have mosquitoes that feed on birds and mammals, and then ones that prefer mammals almost exclusively. So that's what's important, and that goes into one of the other services that we provide, which is surveillance. So surveillance is the cornerstone to any integrated pest management program. If you don't know what mosquitoes you have out there, then you don't know how to make proper applications, whether they're pesticide applications or water management applications or anything like that. So it's very important that we continue to look at what our species compositions are and what kind of risks they pose to, not just you enjoying your backyard, but also to your health. So it's very important.
And, we tend to see certain notices about whether it be EEE, West Nile virus at certain times of the year. And that plays in a lot to do with the mosquito species.
Absolutely.
And the life cycles.
Absolutely, and it has a lot to do with the bird population. For EEE and West Nile, the birds play a major role. The birds need to have the virus. They need to be infecting those mosquitoes, and in some years, it takes a while for that to build up. It doesn't just happen, overnight. So as the mosquitoes come out, you need high populations. They start to feed on the birds. More and more birds get infected. Therefore, more and more mosquitoes get infected. And then you can have, more of a larger outbreak. For West Nile virus, totally different mosquito. Is more of your container breeding mosquito. It's Culex pipiens. It breeds in your catch basins, which is why one of the other services that we provide is a catch basin treatment. So a bacteria, the same bacteria, going into the catch basins to help reduce that mosquito. But it breeds in your areas around your house, like your buckets, your rain, your gutters for rain. It's in all those little places that you don't really think about, but you have around your house.
Bird baths.
Bird baths, yes. Kiddie pools are great. Whether you're using it for your kids or for your dog, we tend to leave them because the water gets warm, and then they can breed mosquitoes as quick as 7 to 10 days in the summer. So we really need to be cleaning out that water every 3 to 4 days to help prevent those mosquitoes.
And you don't need a large volume of water to breed mosquitoes. You can have like one of those blue tarps that people use to cover firewood and stuff, and that can have small pockets of water. And can that breed mosquitoes?
Absolutely, absolutely. It really doesn't need to be that much. The main thing is that the water will last, for the life cycle of the mosquito. But certainly in the summer when the temperatures get hot, they can go from egg to adult quite quickly, 7 to 10 days in some cases. So that's really important. So we monitor those different mosquitoes for West Nile virus using different traps. So we use different traps in our surveillance for depending on what we're looking for, because certain traps collect different mosquitoes more readily. And then some traps are looking for mosquitoes that have already collected a blood meal and possibly are infectious. Other ones are looking for mosquitoes that are looking for a blood meal, but they could already be on their second blood meal as well. So cattail mosquitoes are also very important when it comes to EEE, and so we monitor a lot of the cattail swamps as well.
You have surveillance sites set up. We don't want to know where they are, but you have them set up throughout the county and presumably some here in town.
Sure, absolutely. And we also work closely with the Mass Department of Public Health, and they supplement our traps as well. The Mass Department of Public Health has a lot of long-term trapping locations located both in Bristol and Plymouth County that they do on top of our already trapping for for different mosquitoes.
And that is why when we hear about, a rise in Triple E or West Nile and recommendations, or maybe even, let's say, going back a number of years ago, there was Triple E where there was some aerial spraying just north of Dartmouth, that it's in targeted areas, and those targets are formed because of the surveillance.
Absolutely, yes. It would be whether it's positives that continue to happen or species numbers of those mosquitoes that we think that are really important. Those help form those blocks of where we think that the most likely risk for human involvement. Just to keep in mind, though, that of course, we don't live in one little town, right? So we need to keep in mind that, if a town adjacent to us, New Bedford or Westport or something goes positive, we shouldn't ignore those and just think, well, it's not in Dartmouth, so I'm okay. Remember to look at it on a community basis, not just, a town basis.
Okay, and so we talked about two viruses, West Nile and Triple E, and now all over the news we keep hearing about Zika. And there's a difference between the first two and Zika virus.
Absolutely, a big difference. So Zika virus is a virus that is passed from mosquito to human, and then the human can actually build up enough virus level in their blood to pass it on to another mosquito. That is not true for West Nile or Triple E. West Nile or Triple E, if you get either of those two viruses, you're considered to be a dead-end host. So your body does not produce enough viremia in your blood to transmit the virus back to a mosquito. So we don't have to worry about that. But with this, it's slightly different. And therefore, it uses a totally different mosquito that we really don't have here in Massachusetts. So its primary vector is Aedes aegypti, which doesn't occur in Massachusetts, and it probably occurs as close to us in maybe DC or Virginia. So it's not really even near us yet. It's a very warm weathered mosquito.
And that's the mosquito species that is most efficient at transmitting.
Correct, absolutely. And probably the one that's responsible for the outbreaks that are taking place right now,
Yes.
In Latin America, South America, and in different areas.
And I believe there's also some problems with that species because it kind of runs counter to some of our protection measures, because I think that's a daytime active mosquito.
Absolutely, absolutely. It bites during the day. It's very stealthy. It also will come indoors very easily. It uses very small amounts of water, so it's like the perfect vector. And Aedes aegypti really does transmit quite a few different diseases. Lucky for us, right now, we do not have Aedes aegypti.
We're not in the range.
We are not in the range. And I can't see how, in a course of a year, that anything would change for that. I mean, sure, with the talk of global warming and the way that things are changing, I'm sure that, eventually maybe, but nothing soon, nothing soon. Okay. But we do have the other secondary vector, which is Aedes albopictus, also known as the Asian tiger mosquito. And I provided a picture because it's actually a quite beautiful mosquito. It's a black and white mosquito with a nice white stripe down its thorax, and it's got white bands on its legs, and up by its proboscis, it has white spots on its pout. So it's a very nice looking mosquito, much different than the mosquitoes that we're used to here in Massachusetts. So we had found this mosquito in an area of New Bedford in about 2009, and the most frequent way that it travels across the country is really in tires. And we have a large tire movement throughout the country. So we believe that it was just moved into the areas in tires, in different containers, and now it'll move around our area through the same means, The mosquito bites during the day, again, something that's very, very different than the mosquitoes that we're used to. And it also can live in very, very small bodies of water, like bottle cap size.
Wow.
Water, right.
Much larger than the water that'll collect in a trailer tire or a tractor tire.
Exactly.
Yep.
So they're very well adept to that kind of small environment. So removing things around your house really does make an impact for this mosquito. Cleaning out your downspouts, even those extended parts of those downspouts, that hold water.
The corrugated extensions.
And they can hold water even and breed plenty of mosquitoes. And that's not going to be a place that our pesticide despite the way that it moves through the environment, it's probably not going to get into your downspout. But it can definitely live in small amounts of water, and it's quick too. We are right on the border of its distribution. So there really is barely any in Connecticut. There's barely any in Rhode Island. And we just have this one population. And we believe it to be a continuation of the movement of tires from further south. So whether or not the population has fully established itself here, which in mosquito terms means that it can spend its whole life cycle here all winter long and the eggs don't freeze and they don't die, or whether or not it's actually just brought in through the movement of tires and other containers. So it's not specific to New Bedford. We've found it in Fairhaven. We've found it in Westport. It's just that one population seems to be able to keep itself going or get new introductions. Interestingly, in California, the introduction of those two species, actually Aedes aegypti and Aedes albopicta, came in the movement of lucky bamboo plants. So think of, if we got in a shipment of lucky bamboo to our local hardware stores, they leave them outside, we can have a nice little location. So it's not just tires, there's a lot of different areas. But when you're doing surveillance, like you said, about looking for where you want to spray, whether or not you have West Nile, whether or not you have Triple E, you're going to look for the mosquito in the most likeliest place, So that's why we went to areas where there are tires. And that's where the Mass Department of Public Health is also looking, whether ports, another thing that New Bedford has in common. So airports, regular seaports, and any movement of large amounts of, containers can also bring in this mosquito.
And with this virus, what's important to remember is that it's a travel advice. It's you need to be aware if you're traveling, if you're pregnant or you're intending to become pregnant in the near future. This is not something that is established in New England, in the Northeast. So if you're going to be traveling to areas where there is an outbreak occurring, then you need to exercise those precautions.
Absolutely. And the CDC, as well as the Mass Department of Public Health, have put out travel advisories and suggestions for people that are traveling to those areas. But we will and do have local people coming back to Massachusetts that have Zika, as well as dengue, as well as chikungunya, which are endemic to most of these places where Zika is now found. And they travel back to Massachusetts. Local transmission by our mosquitoes is highly unlikely. Populations are not there. The people have to be in those specific areas. This mosquito, unlike some of our mosquitoes that live here normally, really fly about 1,000 feet. They're going to stay in your yard, especially if you're sitting out there to feed them. They're not going to leave. They're going to stay right in your yard. They're going to stay right around their habitat. Our salt marsh mosquitoes, like from Dartmouth, they can fly 25 miles easily. This is not that kind of mosquito. This mosquito is going to stay close to its habitat. It is. Yep. It is. As we like to say, if you're breeding them, you're probably feeding them. So that's why checking your property for those pieces that are holding water, flower pots and whatnot, dog dishes or something that you just forgot.
And the downs, like you're saying, the downspouts, just a little corrugations that can hold as much volume as a bottle cap.
Exactly.
So
and that'll help not only for this Aedes albopictus, but it will help for a few of our other species as well, like those important for West Nile virus.
Now, how about swimming pools? Back in 2009, there was the Great Recession. I don't understand what was great about it, but it caused a lot of homes to be abandoned and foreclosed, and with that came a lot of abandoned pools, and banks were slow to address the maintenance of these properties. So we had pools with stagnant water, untreated water. When a pool is in operation, it's got chemicals in it, it's filtration, it's moving water. Typically, you don't see insects breeding in a swimming pool.
Right.
But when you don't uncover your pool, the water deteriorates rapidly within that next year. So is there anything, because we still see it from time to time.
Absolutely. Residents can call our office and we will come out and check an abandoned swimming pool. If somebody is living in the house, we'll knock on the door and see if they are okay with us treating their pool. We try not to treat it without permission of the homeowner, only in case they intend to use their swimming pool. But say, we also have a lot of people too that they had kids. Now their kids are off to college. They're not going to do their pool this year. So we can come and treat your pool if you're concerned. Remember too that it doesn't have to be the whole pool. If you leave your cover on the pool, a lot of people think that would be okay. But the leaf litter and everything and that water that goes on top of the pool can be enough to breed some mosquitoes as well. So residents can certainly call our office and ask us to come out and check pools. Whether the house is abandoned, we can figure that out, or we can go and try to touch base with the homeowner to see if we can control some mosquitoes if their pool is breeding.
And it's very apparent that you use a science-based approach, and there's a reason behind that. And could you touch upon homeowners that they're at wit's end and they don't feel like enough is being done, and they decide to take measures into their own hands to wage war on mosquitoes?
Well, certainly read the label. Make sure that if you're going to make any applications on your own, that you read the label and the label is listed for mosquitoes. That's certainly something that's very, very important. And you want to follow the recommendation for the application rate. Again, we're using a shot glass per acre. So you could see, we're all of the theory of if a little is good, more is better, right?
Yes.
So if it says you only need, a teaspoon in a gallon of water to make your application, you don't need to put 4 teaspoons into your gallon of water to make it better. It's not how it works. So certainly read the label. If you're going to use a private pest control company, and there are a lot of them out there now, you want to know what products they're using. You want to know what's the efficacy. Can I get a label? Can I find out what effects it may have? Many new companies are using what they are termed 25B products, or products that are not they're not registered through the EPA. So they don't have as much history or science behind the use of them. Usually they tend to be essential oils. I have a difficult time telling you what's going to happen with an essential oil because the EPA doesn't do the work. The chemical company is not required to do the work because they're not EPA registered. So I can't tell you what will happen when your dog rolls in the essential oil. I don't know. So it's very important that you feel comfortable with whatever pesticide or chemical application that is being made, but to read the label and find something that's going to work best for you. I know that it's not the best idea, but certainly taking other precautions like dressing appropriately if you're going to be outside, long sleeves, long pants. I get it. July, you're not gonna do that. Try to avoid dusk and dawn if you can, as best you can when mosquitoes are most active. Of course, that doesn't happen either because everybody gets home and they want to, sit outside and enjoy the cooler weather. So try to use a repellent. Something that's recommended from the CDC, Mass Department of Public Health also has recommendations, things that contain DEET or picaridin, oil of lemon eucalyptus. You must read the labels as well because some are better for different situations or how long you're going to be outside. They're kind of like sunscreens. You do need to reapply if you're going to be out for a long period of time. But no more than a 30% concentration of DEET can give you a good 4 hours worth of protection, which maybe for the average person getting home after work is about all that they need. But now they come in a lot of different formulations. There's also IR 3535, which is found in Skin So Soft. You just want to make sure you buy the Skin So Soft that includes the pesticide, the repellent in it, and not just the general, Skin So Soft. So reading the label and making sure that you get something that you like is really the best way to do it. And then dump or drain any of that stuff that you have around your property. We also use the phrase chuck it or check it. Mm-hmm. So go out into your yard. If you're not using it, get rid of it, throw it away, chuck it. There's no reason to keep it. If you're going to keep it because you want it, okay, well then check it and make sure that it's not breeding. I think all of us could go around their yard today and find a tire.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Or a tarp.
Or a tarp, or a basketball net, the
trash
sandbox.
can cover upside down.
Exactly. Yes. So, I mean, we all have something somewhere that is going to be producing mosquitoes, probably in our own yard. So if you can, if you want to keep it, you know, you like that flower pot, but you're not really using it, you know, turn it upside down or put it somewhere else, you know, or just check it to make sure after it rains you're not going to be breeding any of your own mosquitoes.
Excellent. And I guess on the final, I think we've covered just about everything that we can, and keep your interest with the audience. Bristol County Mosquito Control is just as it sounds.
Right.
Mosquitoes.
Exactly.
We do have a number of bothersome insects, caterpillars, but they don't pose a public health threat. Unfortunately, they do defoliate our trees. They can make a mess of our yard with their droppings, but there's no public health threat there. It's unfortunately just a cycle that we have to live through, and hopefully our trees recover.
Yes.
You know, they can go on the internet and look up some various control measures that they can take and try, but really once that army starts, I don't see how you're going to stop them. I've watched some neighbors last year try to stop them, and it didn't have any success. And I want to thank you for coming.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity.
And I think that would be a good time to close with a screenshot of your information as where to contact you.
Absolutely. So we'll have our address, our physical address in Attleboro. Our website is also up. It's part of the mass.gov system now, so you can find it on mass.gov. And then, of course, the different ways that you can contact us, whether it's from email, fax, or calling us. And if you can't get through on the phone, you can always send a fax, even if it's not for a spray request, but just for a question or something. Sometimes, you know, the phones get very, very busy. We took a little over 16,000 spray requests last year from the end of May to the beginning of September. So you can see that it gets quite busy with trying to get through. So, you know, try to have patience, and we try to get to everybody as soon as we can.
Excellent. And we're in constant contact, you know, even if it's just by email through the Department of Public Health. And when a threat does arise because of the prevalence of a virus in the area, through the surveillance measures, the town will post that on their website to advise the residents, and use a variety of other sources, whether it be press releases, using other departments to get the information out there as well. We've got a very active Facebook site with our police department that has a tremendous amount of traffic, so I would certainly look to use their success with Facebook as well.
Right. We're also on Twitter. So
Excellent.
that's our foray into the new social media. So we try to post, you know, articles or press releases or anything also on Twitter. So you can follow us on that as well.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you for joining us, and that concludes the show.